All right, welcome to Hoops Tracker Special Edition. We have the Dan Olson from Collegiate Girls Basketball Report. He's been doing this for at least, well, I think 20 years. But Dan, welcome to the show, man. You are the man. You were on a plane. You probably hit 175 airline trips. You're probably gold with every airline out there. But I see you on the road at every event, every national event. You hit regional events. You cover the country like nobody other. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm a diamond, not a gold.
Okay, you're only a diamond. Okay, all right. Well, I figured they give you, but hey, for everybody who doesn't know, Dan Olson, Collegiate Basketball Report, actually a former college coach. You coached at Barry University. You've been an assistant at University of Miami, I believe,
Yep.
but you also do a big podcast on girls junior college basketball called Hot Hoops with who's your partner in crime for that?
Kenya Landers.
Yep. Now, Kenya's actually an assistant coach at LSU, correct?
She was at Oklahoma State. She was the head coach at Trinity Valley Community College, and she was a player at Trinity Valley. Won a national championship as a player, won as a coach at Trinity Valley, played at Texas. She's got a great resume, and tailor made for the junior college podcast that we do. She's she's fabulous.
Yeah, I actually was listening to this week's episode. I thought it was fabulous. I love what you guys are doing. I know the NJCAA helps with that with you guys and sponsors that for you guys. But that, I mean, that's a great show. For any of the players out there, you know, we'll talk about some different things, but the JC scene, that's a great place to develop as a player. What's your take a little bit with all the things going on right now with the NIL, with what recently happened where the NCAA granted 1 year JUCO. I know everybody's waiting to see what that's going to look like
Mhm.
coming up because they're voting on it in April. But a lot of people are making assumptions that, you know, junior college, you get 2 free years of eligibility back forever. And I'm not sure it's going to be like that, but this is recent news, and I would love to just get your quick opinion on that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a quick opinion, but it's a favorable opinion.
There you
Uh,
go.
I've always been a fan of junior college basketball. I learned the junior college in my coaching career as a junior college men's assistant in my hometown. We
Hmm.
were a national powerhouse.
Hmm.
I got kind of thrown into it right away when I was a freshman in college.
Hmm.
And we were a national tournament participant, Jamestown Community College, New York State.
Hmm.
We had a lot of great players, and that's kind of my formulation as I began my scouting service years ago, was
Hmm.
adding that piece to it, which has been that way ever since. Um, Last year was our first year in initial year of NJCAA Hot Hoops. So we're in our second year. It's a weekly podcast that we do on the NJCAA website.
Hmm.
Um, we cover everything junior college. You know, who played well the previous week, who to look
Hmm.
for this coming week. We interview coaches. Um, just different insights. With myself and Kenya Landers, and I think it's been a real hit. But the junior college piece that we're talking about with this new rule that may pop up could conceivably give a player, if they
Hmm.
start as a freshman in junior college, three academic degrees, an associate, bachelor's, and a master's if they hang through.
Hmm.
Um, it would be a great way for colleges in the 2 year setting to get a feeder program from some of the 4 year impact schools. And over the
Hmm.
years, I mean, some of these 4 year schools, Texas A&M,
Hmm.
Arkansas, Gary Blair was the architect of all that back then.
Oh yeah.
Used the junior college setting and he'd come in and pluck them now and get impact players.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as did Louisville. Countless schools that would do that. They'd kind of partner up with various two-year schools,
Mm-hmm.
and one hand would help the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone away with this rule. It could come back,
Uh-huh.
where you've got 3 or 4 players that you want to stash at a junior college,
Mm-hmm.
in hopes of getting them back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I hope it works because it will inject talent into the junior college setting more so, just like it used to be. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's been a downturn over the years.
Yeah.
Uh, there's also been an upswing in a lot of international players coming to JUCO.
Oh, yes.
There used to be a cap on that of 3 players that had to be that could be internationals. Now
Mm-hmm.
there's some teams that have their whole team as internationals.
Right.
So um, there's a lot of good that I think can come out of this,
Mm-hmm.
and it can really it could set up teams where they have a really mature 4-year program. Some of these schools could have kids that maybe are playing as 25 and 26-year olds if they
Right.
really play the system correctly.
Right.
So I'm cautiously optimistic and
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of excited about the future of that part of it.
No, I think, well, and I still think college coaches are stuffing players in JUCOs. It's just not as common as it used to be. And, there's still some and things like that. But yeah, I mean, your point, the international players are coming in. And I know at the Division II level, my daughter runs track and cross country, and there's a D2 school that they have professional runners from Europe coming in and getting a college degree at the
Yeah.
D2 level. And, you got girls that are 25, 26 running against 18-year-olds. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's amazing how that new influx with basketball and how it's grown worldwide has really impacted the game. And now, that it's a perfect segment because this week we just had the McDonald's All-Americans um, list named, and Colorado has 2 players on that list. You got Sienna Betts, who, depending on what service and ranking, she's either 1 or 2. But then you also have Alex Eschmeyer, a big 6'5" wing outside. I mean, she's really a shooter. She's not really a post player. And at the next level, I think Stanford's looking at her as probably being the next Cameron Brink. But my take is with the influx of the international game, you can't just be a single dimensional player. You can't just be a rebounder. You can't just be a shooter. What's your take on that?
Um, well, first things first, let's talk about these 2 players that have been
Yeah.
selected. Betts, the premier center in the class, kind
Hmm.
of following in the footsteps of her sister.
Yes.
Now, her older sister, who's currently Lauren at UCLA,
Hmm.
um, cert, through Stanford, that is,
Yeah.
where she initially started, is a true center. Um,
Yes.
Now, Sienna's more of she can kind of face up a little bit more. She
Mhm.
attacks you from the elbow. She's got some more power forward game to her than being a true center. But when it
Yeah.
comes to an interior game, she's about where you're at with the class of 25. She can
Hmm.
counter, she can up and under you. She finds a way with either hand to deliver. And so she's pretty skilled when she gets down in those boxes.
Yeah.
And wow, you talk about a player that from if you looked at her 4 years ago, 5 years ago, um, she was a mess. It's like as far as her whole overall ability,
Hmm.
she just kept growing, and then
Hmm.
she started to figure it out little by little, and she
Hmm.
really started to hone her skills. So my hat goes off to her in respect to her complete game now.
Uh-huh.
Um, the top the top forward, I would say, in the country. Um,
It's interesting because when I interviewed Sienna, she's like, I'm not a center. My sister's a center. It's funny to talk with her, but when you see that whole family where dad's 7 feet, brother's 7'2",
yeah,
she's the smallest, well, next to mom, she's the smallest one in the family. I mean, it's 6'4", a little bit more than 6'4", but
yes,
she can also shoot the three. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't see a lot. They did 2 years ago when they won the national championship in the Adidas circuit. She had a couple key threes in that game, and people were like floored. They didn't know that she had that range.
yeah, yeah. Eschmeyer, on the other hand, plays really hard.
Hmm.
Um, is more of a forward, can step out. You're right. You can shoot the three some, skilled in the block.
Hmm.
He's kind of one of these prototype players now as we're looking forward through her college career. That's going to be a real mismatch for people because she's got some size. She's 6'3", 6'4", and she can step out, pull out the defense, and she's quick enough to get by them in certain instances and takes the hit physically,
Hmm.
um, but has continued to be a really developing player and
Hmm.
skilled. And I think her pick in the McDonald's game is the fact that she's bringing a different type of skill set that a
Hmm.
lot of people in her size, anyway, can't really emulate. So,
Hmm.
she's got that size, and you got to have players with some size in these two teams. And of course, both of those players provide that.
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna say, I mean, both Sienna Betts and Eschmeyer. Sienna was on the U18 team that won gold, and Eschmeyer was on the U17 because she's actually younger. Um, Probably should be in the 26 class, not the 25 class. But she's a younger player. And yeah, I mean, she's grown a ton, especially in the last year. I watch her obviously a little bit more because she's in my backyard. um,
Right.
but she's gotten a lot stronger. I think, the club team that she played for, the Colorado Hoopsters, Steve Fendry, who coached Abby Wayner, who coached Emily Fox back in the day, has done a great job in helping her develop and,
Yes.
and get to where she's at.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I watched her quite a bit over the past 12 months. I would say it's about 10 times anyway.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's a remaining constant for her is her effort. She has a good motor and competes, and that's
Hmm.
going to carry her a long way as
Yeah.
she moves on.
Yeah, no. So talk about the McDonald All-American, I mean, getting on this list, we'll get to the rankings part because I know that that plays a big factor in getting on and getting selected. But what's your knowledge of the McDonald's All-American and how they go about their selections
Well, I believe, and by the way, I'm not a member of that uh,
of the committee?
committee. I have
Yeah.
never been a member of that committee for whatever reason.
Hmm.
Um, they do a selection process state by state where you have to nominate your player through your high school coach. You
Hmm.
get nominated. I think that takes place in like November.
Yeah.
And then I think, it speeds up the process here in December into January where they kind of make these cut downs of whatever
Hmm.
way that they do it. And, um, arrive at a 24-member team. Now, as I alluded to a minute ago, I think that, they have to find number one players that have some size. So they may not necessarily be the best players of the 24 players in the country, but
Right.
they provide the spot. It fills the spot.
Hmm.
Um, Secondly, I think they probably have to find players that are among those in the national rankings that are elite players enough, but have some scoring ability and some dynamics to their game, a la Aliyah Chavez,
Hmm.
the nation's number one player, um, a gifted offensive player. um, is approaching or has maybe already surpassed 4,000 points in her career.
Holy smoke.
I mean, she can fill it up. So you've got some players like that that really are going to be kind of a highlight reel that,
Hmm.
and she certainly does that, but she's skilled,
Yeah.
and so you've got those players that fit that particular dynamic of the team,
Uh-huh.
and and then that's how it kind of guess it fills out. So, but I wouldn't know the specifics of it because I'm not a member.
Yeah, but I mean, you used to run the ESPN 100. I mean, look, you're one of the top evaluators in the country, probably in the world, especially among women's basketball, because you also do this internationally, which kind of leads how do you, I mean, you're a former college coach, you've been evaluating for 20 years. How do you evaluate a player? What's your process in going through and evaluating a player?
Well, obviously, as I sit down, and if I'm not aware of any of the players that are playing,
Hmm.
I want to see if there's anybody that has significant size,
Hmm.
because size is such a demanding item among college coaches.
Hmm.
So that's first and foremost. I want to see if they're anybody that's a dominant inside presence. Secondly, if you can make shots, if you can handle the ball, if you have a sense of court awareness and knowing how to run your team, whether it be a point guard, a guard,
Hmm.
anyone on the floor. And you have to let it unfold for a few minutes and see and sit there as things do. And
Hmm.
then you'll kind of get a grasp of, oh, that kid's pretty good, and let me make sure I keep an eye on her. And
Hmm.
so, but you got to watch both ends of the floor. You got to watch both teams. And
Hmm.
it's a somewhat quick process in some capacities because if you're looking at a player like Sienna Betts or Leah Chavez, it doesn't take
Hmm.
very long to figure that part of it out.
Right.
It's the fourth and fifth player. It's those other players that are involved and what they're doing that are adding to the team itself. Um, but the other one thing that I really kind of focus on too is the competitiveness, the uh, how hard that particular player or players play. Do they give up? Do they are they in it for themselves? And so you got to kind of pay attention to that type of thing as it falls out. And you know, there's a lot of other factors that go into play.
Yeah.
You know,
No, there is.
and how well are they being coached? Are they being
Yes.
put in a position to win and
Uh,
succeed, or are they playing out of position? Um, you know, you got parents on the sidelines talking to their kid, trying to coach their kid. Well, they should just let the coach coach the team,
right.
and let the players do their thing, and so there's a lot of these circumstances that evolve, and it's a
Yeah.
very interesting dynamic as it plays out each game and throughout the day.
No, it does. You brought up the whole parent thing. I had a college coach once tell me they went and saw a player for the first time, and the dad was yelling from the stands at the referees, and they're like, "Hey, we're that's actually a knock against the kid because of their parent." And I don't know if the parents are aware of that or not. What's your advice? I mean, what's your advice for parents at a lot of these national tournaments?
Just be a mom and dad and watch your kid play. You don't need to be part of the whole thing. The college coaches that are sitting there on the sidelines, they're smart enough to pay attention now and see who's being a knucklehead and who's not. And so they want to see the player play. They don't need to hear the parents adding into it. It's not going to change. That's going to still happen.
Right.
Um, I understand that the parents, that's their child, and that
Hmm.
they're paying to be in there. They're paying to be on that team, so to speak, and
Mhm.
they want to have some sort of a voice, you know.
Right.
Um, but I think it adds a lot of undue pressure on that particular player
Mhm.
to perform. You know, just let it be, you know, and it'll all solve itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I think parents need to encourage their daughters and sons. I mean, I see parents on the time, on the sideline, and while they're talking in the kid's head, the coach is coaching them from the other side, and the kids got too much information. They got a lot of noise in their head and they can't play.
Yeah.
And then it distracts them instead of encourages them. I mean, I try to tell parents like, look, your daughter needs you to be a dad, not a coach.
Yeah.
If you're a father or you're a mother, they need that encouragement. And young ladies are very different. And even young men need that same encouragement. Might
Yep.
come in a little bit different way, but they need that encouragement. They don't need more noise in their head. They've already got plenty of other crazy stuff going on in their head to, trying to play the game, trying to do this, trying to do that.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
yeah. Now, when you're evaluating players, talk about the rankings, because like, how do you like, for example, right? I mean, you already said Aaliyah Chavez is number one. I'm assuming she's number one on your list.
She
Sienna,
is.
Sienna has been number two on a lot of people's lists, but and the ranking, do you need to be number two? Do you need to be number five? If you're in the top 10 or top 20, does it
No, it
make a
doesn't matter.
big difference?
It doesn't matter for a college coach
Hmm.
to sit there and evaluate a player and recruit that player. They don't care whether or not the player's 100, 2,000. Doesn't matter to them.
Hmm.
What matters to that coach is, does that player fit the scheme of what they're doing in their system and how they coach kids?
Hmm.
That's what they're looking for. So
Hmm.
for someone that's an evaluator or a so-called evaluator to
Hmm.
sit there and say that they can tell, oh, that player can do this for your team. They don't know nothing about your team. If your your coaching staff knows about your team because you're with them every day, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
Someone that's a evaluator can't make a
Hmm.
statement like that. That's a blanket statement.
Right.
Um, you know, I can just tell you from my understanding of what I've seen, this
Uh-huh.
is what this player brings to the table.
Yeah.
This is how many times I've watched her play. And that's my decision. That's my evaluation on that player.
Hmm.
So, that's the farthest thing from the coach's mind is, the five, the one, the three. Now, where it
Yeah.
does become a matter is when we're talking money now. All right.
Yep.
College
Switch
coaches,
gears. Now we're talking NIL. We're talking all this new stuff.
we're talking about college coaches getting bonuses because their classes are signed and they're getting, a certain ranking where they're falling among their peers.
Yeah.
So, you know, if if school X falls in the top 10, well, hey, that coach is maybe making a bonus of whatever.
Right.
But if they fall to 11, they're not making as much. So it's important for them to make certain that kid's ranked at a certain spot and it works out for them.
Mhm.
So that's happened with me before, where I've
Yeah.
had that conversation.
Yeah.
I
And
stay
that's a
unbiased.
valid conversation because it's a college coach and this is based on their pay and
Yeah,
they negotiated or their agent negotiated their contract. But
correct.
you're right. I mean, people don't understand there's some other things that are going on behind the scenes that affect college coaches and their jobs and recruiting the right player. I mean, I look
Correct.
at here in Colorado, right? The last 2 years, J.R. Payne, they've done a great job getting to that Sweet 16. They hit on I mean, they've been starting to hit on the everything, and then this year they graduated a ton. And then because of the portal, because of money, because of NIL, a lot of players transferred out,
Yep.
um, and they're having to rebuild. So
Yeah. It's become a constant yearly thing. You don't really know I even take it to the extreme of you don't know from day to day
Yeah.
if someone's going to walk into your office as a coach and say, "Yeah, I'm not playing anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else." It's I'm not a fan of this whole setup the way it is. I think it needs to be adjusted and changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Speaking of rebuilding and things, how, in the last couple years, we've seen the portal completely transform basketball.
Yeah,
Well, not just basketball, football. I mean, you talk about all these sports, but
yeah,
it's been crazy because now instead of getting a player for 4 years or whatever, it's almost like, well, it goes back to when you get a scholarship, it's renewable each year, and now
right.
everybody's a free agent at the end of the year.
That's
Um,
what I call it, free agency.
yeah.
You know? Everybody's on a 1 year deal.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then with junior college, with the high school players, how does that affect recruiting?
Well, it obviously adds more to it. Like, let's take that perspective from the high school player.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not one of the elite players in the country. Okay, but you're
Mhm.
still a very good player.
Yeah.
Um, I think your chances are have dwindled.
Hmm.
Uh, you have a diminishing return on these players coming back to your team because of the portal, because of junior college, Europeans in the mix.
Hmm.
So the chances of you playing at that particular school may have really shortened. That's why I think it's important for parents, um, club coaches, high school coaches, who's ever involved in the process of that particular player getting to school X is the process of really pursuing those schools in an early time frame, seeking out their interest of, hey, I want to go to your school. You have this academic major. um,
Hmm.
I'm friends with so and so on your team. I've come to your games before. I want to attend your elite camp. I
Hmm.
think those things like that are nothing but a win-win on the parents, the club coach, the team's coach in high school. Everybody is a win-win because now at least you're showing some sincere interest here.
Right.
Um, and I think the elite camp way is really the 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 one thing that really helps the player really understand, hey, I can play at that school.
Right.
I'm good enough to compete against those girls because I've been to their elite camp. I've seen them practice. I've seen them play. I really fit well with everybody involved. The coaching staff has now gotten to know me.
Hmm.
Um, all of those things put together, I think, is a smart move on that player and parents' part.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I mean, how this kind of leads more into getting back to the players and where they're at. I mean, what's your recommendation for a player if they're good? And I've talked with a handful of parents that have been through the process that are high level. They have high level athletes and stuff, but what's your recommendation for a lot of these kids to get recruited, or if they have goals to get to, whatever school or play at a particular level? When should they start? Where should they go? What should they do? Because this is a big mystery to a lot of parents.
Well, I think that most parents that are realistic of their daughter's future, okay,
Hmm.
can understand where they fit in the whole big scheme of things. All right. Um, if they know that they're playing travel basketball or they're excelling at the sport in high school and they're doing fairly well at it,
Hmm.
they need to focus on, all right, my daughter wants to go to school and be a doctor,
Hmm.
okay, or an engineer, okay.
Hmm.
So let's look at all the schools that are offering that particular major,
Mm-hmm.
that are within a 500-mile radius of our house.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that part of it doesn't matter. Maybe they want to go to a different part of the country, you know. And then I think they need to start doing some research on their own,
Mm-hmm.
following schools. Let's start with say 20 different schools.
Right.
Look at those schools and find out, hey, they have my interest as an academic major. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, I'm good enough to play there.
Right.
Number three, how stable is the college coach there? Have they
Mm-hmm.
been successful? Are they are they well received among other conference members?
Mm-hmm.
Are they up and down? Do they have a lot of turnover on their rosters, which
Right.
may be a little bit deceiving now with the portal and all that stuff.
Right.
But usually when you get into some schools, especially the higher academics, you're not going to fall into that category necessarily as much because
Mm-hmm.
most of those kids are probably there for more than just the basketball piece of it. They're there to
Sure.
get a really home run education because they realize I'm not a professional basketball player. I want to
Right.
get an education in a knockout job. So I'm
Yeah.
going to stay with this particular school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you need to be the proactive one in this process, reaching out to those schools, seeing their receptiveness if they're interested or not. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what starts to get the ball rolling. And then what I had just alluded to is go to their elite camps, you know, make yourself known who I am, what I want to do, this and that, meet with academic advisors. I
Mm-hmm.
think going to elite camps is priceless because it's cost effective and it really gives you the answers you want to have as you move forward with this whole process. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Individual camps like everybody and their brother wants to put on nowadays,
Yeah.
they're not teaching you nothing. They're rolling the ball out. Let's be honest. Okay.
Right.
There's nothing there, you know? And so I used to do it, but I had a guy that was a world-class trainer that would teach, Gannon
Mhm.
Baker. But
Yes.
then I got out of it because I was tired of dealing with the process of kids just going to other events and rolling the ball out and not learning much.
Right.
So I left it be.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think one of the things I try to encourage, not necessarily the parents, but the players, when they go to elite camps, go up and ask the coach or one of the assistant coaches, like, hey, am give me honest feedback. Am I at this? Do you think I'm at this level? Do you think I'm a good fit? And if not, then where do you think would be a good fit for me? Just to
Right.
get feedback, because you're paying to be there, and 99% of these coaches are going to be flat up and straight up honest. I mean, I haven't met a coach yet that wouldn't be honest to a player and like, look, this may not be the right fit for you. Um, and I would encourage you, here's some programs that because the coaching world's small and all these coaches know each other and they
Yeah.
also talk. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one thing I'm not sure parents realize is at the college level, these coaches, some of them used to work camps together 10 years ago and they all talk and they all hook up every year, and just meet
The
up and
network.
yeah, it's
All
it's
a
a small
network.
network.
Sure it is. Yep.
Yeah. No, this is great. And then on the recruiting aspect, once they kind of go through and they're narrowing down some of their choices. I think you brought up some great things, right? See how much the players are there a lot of players transferring out and why? And maybe even talk to some of the seniors that are graduating because they'll tell you the real story, most of
Yep.
them you know um is there girl drama, you know is there this, is there that? I mean, I've talked to many players over the years that have transferred colleges going in thinking like, hey, this is going to be great and the white carpet's rolled out for me and all this, and a lot of them think they've arrived when they don't realize the work is just now beginning.
Correct. And you got to know your pecking order
Yeah.
in anything.
Mm-hmm.
You go to these camps, there's a pecking order.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go to your own team. within your travel team,
Hmm.
there's a pecking order.
Yeah.
You know who the better player is. If you're the top dog, then you're running it. But
Hmm.
knowing where I fit if I go to college X,
Hmm.
what's who's in my position that I play? Who do I
Hmm.
have to compete against? Am I number one at that? Am I five? I
Hmm.
don't want to be five. Well, then I don't want to go there. Maybe I want an
Right.
easier path, you
Hmm.
know. Um, to each his own. Some kids relish the fact that, oh, they think I'm number five. Well, I'm better than number five. I'm number one. So there's a lot of picking and choosing going on there after that point, decision making.
Right. Right. No. So kind of going a little bit back to what we talked a little bit about in the beginning with the ranking aspect,
Mhm.
how do you rank after you've evaluated a player? How do you put your rankings together? And you're one of the few people in the country that goes from coast to coast and watches players. Not many make it past the Mississippi, one way or the other, whether they're coming from the east or the west. But you're one of the few that goes across. So as you go out and you hit these national, whether it's tournaments or and different things, and you've evaluated a player, how do you rank them? How do you pull that together from a national basis?
Purely common sense.
Mhm.
I've never had a sneaker company, an event operator involved in the mix when I was doing this. It's purely like, hey, look, that kid's the best player, you
Mhm.
know. And it's a thing where you just get used to recognizing that player is going to become a projected better player. And I
Mhm.
I kind of there's kind of an in between where you look at the players through the top, say, 20,
Mhm.
and you say to yourself, 19's better than 18. I'm moving 19 up. Okay.
Right.
20's better than 21. 10's better. No. And that's how you just formulate it. Um, then you have some wild card in it where you look among the 100 best prospects and you say to yourself, gee, there may be some projected value of a player that's going to become a very good talent.
Mhm.
I think they deserve to be within that range of number, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and it fluctuates. Like I don't stick on numbers on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis unless
Mhm.
I've got justification to move them. I'm going to move them, but it's always
Right.
fluctuating because I'm not seeing that particular player. Let's say it's the 50th best player that I have in the country.
Right.
I may see them 15 times in a year, but I'm
Mhm.
not watching them every game.
Right.
So I may get, kind of a cross section of what I'm seeing.
Right.
And I hope that I'm not seeing them when they're having a bad game, you know.
Right.
But if I do, yeah, they're going to slip some. But that's my opinion. That's what I'm seeing. And
Right.
I think over the long haul of what I've been doing for the years that I've been doing it, I've gotten really good at recognizing, okay, this player is going to fit right where that spot is. I
Mhm.
think that they're going to be good at that number. And although certainly I still miss,
Mhm.
for the most
We're
part,
all human.
it's fairly accurate. So that's how I kind of formulate the numbers game.
Do you go through and like would you actually rank like by position and then like all right, here's my point guards, here's my combo guards, here's my wings, here's my small power forwards, here's my centers, and then just kind of, as you're going through, like you look at like a Jersey Robinson, right, in the 26 class. I think, she's ranked number one or she's in the
Yep.
top five for sure. But, you look at someone like that, then you have like a Bree Crittenden out of Colorado, which Colorado's not known for pumping out big players, but they have been lately.
Yeah.
And it's been a while because we used to have a pretty good pipeline with Gino, with all sorts of schools back 20 years ago. And
Yeah.
but so do you start with the position and then go by position and then put together like here's my maybe my top 10, right? Here's my two 5-on-5s that I would really like to see go together. How do you go about that?
Yeah, no, I don't formulate it per position, although I rank it by position on my website.
Hmm.
It's purely randomly. Hey, if I think, Sienna Betts is the number three prospect, that's where
Uh-huh.
she's going to sit. But if there's another center that's right there behind her, I'm going to put her right at four. So it doesn't really matter to me what position they play,
Right.
just the fact that I think they are better than that next person. So that's how I formulate it. And,
Uh-huh.
getting back to Colorado itself, um, Bree Crittenden, an outstanding prospect in the 26 class. But you
Hmm.
look at Mountain West Premier, they lost in the national championship at the Nike Nationals, which is
Yeah.
the big dog of the tournaments.
Yeah.
Um, and then Hardwood Elite's done really well over the last couple of years with Adidas.
Hmm.
So, I think that the state of Colorado's got some very talented players. You know,
Hmm.
they may have an upper echelon player in Sienna Betts and Bree Crittenden, but then they've
Hmm.
got some other players, like Santana Sabis, Eschmeyer,
Yes.
you know. There's some good players there that kind of go under the radar that are pretty good.
We just had one of the girls in the 26 class, Peyton Jones, just dropped 45 points the other night on a top 10 team, and they were behind and they came back. Um, she's hitting threes like, I mean, she is on fire. Uh,
That's another really good prospect.
yeah, I mean, but yes, we definitely do have those players. Um, and I know I text you every once in a while to make sure, I hope you get a couple of those players up on your radar because we got some good ones coming. So
Agreed.
no, Dan, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time and taking time out and um man, I love all the things that you're doing and it was fun watching your JUCO podcast. Th that sounds great and it looks like you enjoy doing it and man, I can't wait to see you on the road in a couple weeks or probably not till April, right? So
Yeah, every week's a new week for me, but I'll probably run into you somewhere along the line in April.
yeah, oh, I'm sure. Either Dallas or wherever. So, but yeah, no, that'll be great. Well, Dan, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate all your advice and wish you well, man.
Likewise, Jerry, thanks for having me.